Oh, the long weekend is over, and I've had a chance to now sit down and watch the Vic Metro and South Australia National Champs game. One that we streamed at the weekend, but of course, all of that drama at the beginning. We missed the first quarter of this game because it wasn't up on the AFL website. So I've got a chance to go over that one. I'm going to also do a review of the Vic Country WA game, but I haven't had a chance to rewatch that yet. I just need to go through my process, sit down and watch all the performances, but I'll stay on track with this Metro and South Australia game, which is very intriguing, very intriguing. Watching it live, I was sort of found myself a little bit frustrated watching it from that second quarter mark, looking at the midfield mix that Metro put out there and sort of thinking that they were leaving something on the table. I think when I actually watched that back in retrospect and watching the first quarter, it probably didn't look as unusual as what it did from watching it from the second quarter when you saw guys like Burton and Swade and El Ashkar in the middle. I think they were kind of running a more conventional centre bounce group in the first quarter that wasn't really working for them. So, sort of understand that on retrospect, but there was some, I suppose overall, just for Vic Metro, just didn't really put down a very connected performance in this one. I think every time they tried to get that handball game clearly going off the half back line, trying to move the ball from D50 to score, but South Australia was so good at just pressing them up and squeezing them in and not giving them any time and space. I thought at times at centre bounce and at stoppages around the ground, even that Vic Metro players continuously just got sucked in by South Australian midfielders. It was like everybody was chasing the ball carrier, which left out numbers there as well, and a real ability for SA just to be able to move the ball from stoppage inside to out, and then get it to those forwards, those dangerous forwards. And you're starting to look at this South Australian team now as a serious threat in the competition. They've now knocked off the Allies, they've knocked off Vic Metro, probably the two going in the favourites to win the competition. So you'd have to be switching that now and looking at South Australia as the clear overall favourite. Two awesome performances from them. 2-0 to start this, and now they've only got to play WA and Vic Country to close out the tournament. So that is incredible stuff. We'll go through some of the performances because there were many, and I think this for South Australia is really important for their overall drafting numbers because you're going to start to see guys that have a really good chance for them over this 4 game period, and they're going to shoot up in the draft ranges. Now, the first one for me that's really stood out across both games, and he's not a superstar player. He's not a really flashy player, but he's seems to be one that's just continuously like at the contest for me. He's applying pressure. He wins his forward 50 contests. He is that small forward type, which I think is probably a good thing for him in that it's a really popular on trend player to take a little bit higher in the draft at the moment. I'm talking about Zane Piker, who had another fantastic game today, 14 disposals, and he kicked 2 goals, but it wasn't just the output that you see on the stat sheet there. The 2 goals that he kicked were both really well worked. He had a couple of other goal assists, one that he worked for Dyson Sharp, wins a contest inside forward 50 on 2 of these occasions to set up goals. Another one he kicked from long range, but he just beats his opponent. He like manned up a lot on some of those smaller defenders for Metro. Thomas Burton was one, Kai Fincher was one, and he was just turning them inside out. He's got really good pace. He closed his opponents down when they were trying to run the ball out as well. He was really important in keeping that press on the Metro defenders, running the ball out of defense, and he's very clinical when he gets the ball in his hand. So he's one that's in both of the games, firstly against the Allies, but also in this one has really shot up for me. I absolutely loved his performance. And the next one, I don't really know where this player would sit in draft rankings. I don't know a lot about him, but I just have to give him a big props for winning his battle against Cooper Duff Titler. I suppose arguably you could say that he didn't win the battle, but just the amount of pressure that he put on, the contested possession that he won, the clearances that he won, and just his follow up work was sensational. I'm talking about Ainsworth, the ruck for South Australia. He's had 2 really good games, and he just looks like a fighter in there, which is really what you want. Again, I think as a team, they were able to really pressure Cooper Duff Titler when he got the ball out in space, and he was able to use his athleticism to sort of beat Ainsworth. But he never really got any clear kicks and never really got the opportunity to be able to hurt SA because of the team defense and partly because of what Ainsworth was doing. I think at times he pushed forward and created headaches as well, just mismatches with all of those really talented forwards that South Australia do have. Which kind of brings me on, I guess, to talking about those 2 other main forwards for South Australia, which is Aiden Schubert and Mitch Marsh. Schubert in this one kicked another 3 goals. He was a big aerial threat again. And it's just now 2 games. Probably the first one that I watched him play, I thought, okay, I want to see him play on maybe some higher profile defenders, I suppose. And you look at the likes of Barker and Taylor and these players that were sort of swinging through him, and none of them could really go with him with his reach. Just that athleticism that he has, the ranginess that he has, the ability to just to put both arms up, a little bit Sam Darcy esque. I know he's not as big as him, but just the reach is too much for those defenders to go with. And this Metro team that is carrying a lot of those maybe hybridy type defenders, they weren't able to compete with him, and he just got off the chain really. And with all the clearance numbers that South Australia were winning, it was too much for them. And yeah, he got off the chain. Mitch Marsh, similar. He took some big contested marks as well. I think for his size, being that kind of low 190s guy, they had better matchups for him in Taylor and Condigiannis as well. But no one was really able to keep these guys at bay, and just the amount of forward 50 entries that South Australia were getting put too much pressure on those Metro defenders. Noah Dore. Noah Dore, I have to talk about. I really like this guy. He's probably having the champ so far that I expected a Xavier Taylor from Metro to have. In fairness, Xavier Taylor's only played the 1 game, but Noah Dore in both of these games has impressed me. Today, again, what did he pull here? He had 11 intercept possessions. He went at 85% disposal efficiency and 3 inside 50s as well. So you can see that he wasn't just getting the ball really deep. He was getting the ball and kicking it inside 50 as well. He's got that booming right foot kick that he likes to set up play with. Luke Candy was another one there that I just saw some things from him today that I probably didn't see in the first game. You just saw those moments where he could dash out, use his pace, use his aerial leaping as well. He's a major athlete, this guy. Probably just does need to clean up the ball use a little bit. He does make some mistakes by foot, which is probably overall a bit of a theme of this draft, and maybe a bit of a theme of the SA team, but they do work around that. The system that they have, the pressure that they put on sort of makes up for a lot of that, and the dominance that they have from clearance. And we can't really discuss the clearance game without talking about Dyson Sharp. He was big in this game. He had 32 disposals, he had 7 clearances, and he had 10 score involvements for the match, and really was just that nucleus for them at the center bounces, at the stoppage clearances. He was just a big body in there. Now, same as what I said about Luke Candy, I think there is still some question marks on the kicking. I mean, you don't really ever see him come out of stoppage and lace somebody out. Most of the kicks are sort of, they're high, they're long, inside forward 50. There's not a lot of precision there, but he is a force at stoppage. He's a big, strong unit and has a reasonable amount of pace to get out of the stoppage as well. Now, with the ball use factor for me, probably means that he's not really coming up the draft board particularly. I still think there's enough flaws there, but granted, contextually in this 2025 draft crop, there kind of isn't any perfect player in that top end. We're not looking at, Sam Law, Lafino Sullivan types in this draft where you kind of go, yeah, that's my guy. There are flaws on everyone. Everyone has some downsides to their game, I suppose. So we've got to kind of keep that in context. Another player that really impressed me in this one was Sam Cumming. I thought he's just putting together now from the academy games, his SANFL form, to this national championships. He just looks the part out there to me. And another 2 goals where he was, pushed forward and took some contested marks, 21 disposals. He's really busy around stoppage, but he does have, compared to say some of the other, like, I don't know, run of the mill type mids in there, your Dan Annable sort of accumulator types. He just has a little bit more bite to him as well. Sam Cumming, a bit more athleticism, really good agility as well. So I just like what he does, and he gets enough of the footy to have an impact, and then he can go forward and sort of hurt the opposition a little bit more deeply. And probably the only other one I really wanted to mention there was Blake Odeshawn Benia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I think he's got some traits as well. Now, in this game, he really just had the 10 disposals, so he wasn't prolific at all, but shows that pace when he comes out of stoppage that he has a little bit more to him. Some of the mids for Metro, particularly you're looking at guys like Rory Wright and Greaves, they couldn't sort of go with his pace when he was the last release there. So gets out of stoppage really well. He had 10 disposals, as I said, at 80% disposal efficiency, which is pretty good for a mid. I just liked his game. Not that it was a big game particularly. I just sort of liked some of the traits. And I think this South Australia team, with the performances that they're putting up, you will see some of these guys kind of come through. And Matt Leray, someone that we know. He's in that academy team. He's already pretty well known, but he had a good solid game in this one. Harley Barker was another one who had a really good game, I thought, in the first one, and was pretty solid again. And you can see the traits and the attributes that he has at AFL level to be able to play probably on a wing, I would assume, at the top level. For Vic Metro, let's be honest, it was a bit of a dirty day for them. There's not too many games that they lose by 60 points. They were sort of in it until halfway through the second quarter and just got blown away after that. There were a lot of free kicks kind of through the middle of that game that were maybe a little bit questionable, but they didn't get any ascendancy at all from the middle of the ground. Again, I sort of go back to that centre bounce mix that I was seeing through that second quarter, a really important part of the game. There are a lot of smaller bodies in there. I would have liked to see a little bit more of like an Ollie Greaves in there at that point, a Rory Wright with a bit more physicality, but we didn't, and the game got away from them. I thought Oliver Greaves was their best player for the game. He had 27 disposals, he had 5 clearances, and he had a goal, but a lot of that was sort of from the third and fourth quarter when the game had already kind of slipped away from them. So hard to put too much praise on any one Vic Metro player or put too much blame, I suppose, on any one Vic Metro player either. It just sort of got away from them and there wasn't a real standout for them. But I do think Ollie Greaves, overall, the traits that he has, in some ways, he's probably Vic Metro's answer to someone like a Dyson Sharp. I think his ball use is a little bit better, though. I do see him as overall in the draft picture a little bit more of a higher prospect. But again, no Vic Metro player was sort of painted in gold today. The other one I wanted to talk about, or a couple more guys I wanted to talk about, Xavier Bammett. He had a pretty, again, a low accumulation day. He's that sort of player, Xavier Bammett. He doesn't rack up your 25, 30 touches. He's sort of a 15 and 1 sort of guy at the moment. I think he's largely a contested player, someone that's winning the ball on the inside, and he probably doesn't give himself enough easy ball at the moment, but he has some serious weapons to his game. He's a player that can run a 2K time trial in under 6 minutes, which is incredible. He's got a big physical body. He's got some power to him as well. And he took some big contested marks. I thought really important contested marks in this game that where you just kind of go, wow, with all of the running ability that he has and the pace that he has, it's pretty impressive. And he can kick a long range goal. He did in this game. He kicked the goal in this game. So he still impresses me in the low volume that he's getting at the moment. Max Contagianis, I thought, was probably the best of the running defenders for Metro. And I guess you look at the game style they tried to play with players like him, like Taylor. You had Thomas Burton back there. You also had Sam Grill at times off the halfback flank, trying to run the ball out of defense. So they tried to get that going. I thought Max Contagianis was probably the best of those guys. And he took a lot of intercepts. He was a leading intercept player for Metro. He had 7. He had 380 meters gained as well. So I think for the future going forward for Metro, he'll be really important for them. And still, to me, probably looks at this point like a late first rounder for me, but someone that's coming up draft boards pretty strongly at the moment. Taylor, as I mentioned, probably just needs to have a bounce back game. Um, I think at times he probably defended fairly well in this game, but yeah, it wasn't good with the ball. And a lot of Metro players, I think the theme overall for Metro was they just didn't have any time and space on the ball. They were just pressed up on, and they all looked a little bit shaky at times with ball in hand because of that pressure that SA were applying. Kai Fincher needs a shout out, 26 disposals. I think he was a little bit deeper in defense. He was on kickouts at times. So he probably did have a little bit more time and space than some of those guys that were working the ball up further. But pretty assured when he had the ball in his hand, and he combined pretty well with Thomas Burton, the captain back there, and they used it well at times and just kept control of the ball at times, but didn't really have any offensive cut through at the same time. Players for Vic Metro that we probably wanted to see a little bit more from that have to have a big next 3 games. I feel we're looking at Cooper Duff Tytler. I think I wouldn't say lowered his colours. It wasn't like he had a bad game. He still had 18 touches. He won the hit out battle, but you probably just wanted to see a little bit more from him around the ground. And again, some of his polish and his poise when he has the ball in hand, we didn't really get to see that in this game because of all the pressure. Sam Grill probably needs a bit more of a bigger game in the next one. Again, wasn't terrible in this game. Still found a little bit of the football and showed that run and dash that he has. But if you're getting closed down like that all of the time, it definitely does take away from some of the features of your game. And of course, Rory Wright, I think, spent a lot of time. I feel like he spent a lot of time off the ground in this game. I know his workload has been pretty big in the lead up to this, so I'm not sure how much of that was valid coming into the champs for him, the amount of games that he's played to start this season, but definitely wasn't able to sort of apply himself at clearance and go with the likes of a Dyson Sharp, who was sort of, a bulk clearance winner in this game. Even Greaves, who was probably able to get his frame in there. Wright would have liked to set his sort of combativeness on this game a little bit more overall. So I think in the next three games, it's going to be big for him as well. That is just a brief overview of the SA and Vic Metro game, and I'll definitely be trying to put out some rankings and some mock drafts kind of as we go through the carnival to the back end of the carnival as well. But this is just touching base and going over some of those big performers. And definitely in this particular game, it was all about SA because they absolutely smacked Vic Metro in this one.